was minding my own business, picking up my usual order of chicken chow mein and scallion dumplings at the Chinese restaurant down the street, when there he was. Dressed in a cerulean tunic that had baby blue piping, leather straps running across his torso and waist, a sword and shield strapped to his back, and a ragged ponytailed blonde wig on his head. What a nerd, I thought to myself. We were cosplaying exactly the same character, down to the brown leather boots. When he turned around with his order and saw me, he was shocked for about a good 2 seconds before he pointed at me, his mouth wide open with recognition. "Yo!" he exclaimed. I laughed awkwardly. "Yo!" I said back. "Were you at the same convention?" he asked, causing a lot of people to stare. I glanced around nervously, hoping no one was judging the sudden explosion of sound coming from two geeks who were dressed up exactly the same. "I was, bro," I told him. "Funny we didn't bump into each other there." "Chow mein?" he asked, shaking his own bag of noodles at my face. "How'd you know?" I laughed awkwardly, shooting at him with pistol hands before he disappeared out the door. I sighed my relief when the interaction finally ended. I ordered my food, paid, and quickly slipped out of the restaurant, eager to escape the stares of 15 people who were probably wondering what century I was from. The moment I got out of the door, 2 ladies blocked my way. I was rummaging into my bag for a bite of dumplings, so I saw their black thigh-high boots first. When my eyes slowly made their way up their legs, I noticed that they were wearing skin-hugging catsuits, one in red and the other in blue. I mentally rolled my eyes. Great, more cosplayers. Before I could get a look at their faces, my vision went black. One of them had put a bag over my head. I was about to struggle. I wanted to scream for help. But at that very moment, I found out I was one of those people who froze in life-threatening situations. The last thing I remembered hearing was the door of the Chinese restaurant swing and closed behind me, and one of the women saying, "Gotcha." I woke up in the trunk of a speeding car. We went over a speed bump and my forehead hit the hood. I felt ropes tying my hands behind my back, and the bag was still over my head. Whoever these girls were, they were at least thoughtful enough to cut a hole over my mouth so I could breathe. "Help!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. I kicked wherever my feet could reach. I thrashed and screamed over the engine's constant roar. But it seemed nobody heard or cared. I no longer had a sense for time. It could have been an hour later, or 10, but we eventually slowed to a stop. I heard 2 sets of feet crunching against gravel and through the bag. I saw light filter in. "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" I kicked and screamed, hoping I'd hit either of them. "Take his legs," said one of the voices. Not a second later, I was being lowered onto the ground. The same sultry, velvety voice whispered in my ear as she grabbed me by the scruff of my tunic. "Do you feel this taser pressing against your back?" she asked. I nodded yes, trying to pull away from the poking prongs that threatened to electrocute me. "Struggle any more, or run," she purred, "and I will make sure you never forget what being tased feels like." She let the gadget's threatening charge crackle for a couple of seconds, to prove her point. I frantically nodded my submission. I won't run," I promised. Just please tell me why you're doing this. I don't have any money. I didn't do anything wrong," I stammered. "Shut it," said the sultry, raspy voice who held the taser. She grabbed the scruff of my tunic again, instantly ripping the front and exposing my bare chest to the cold night air. Her bare strength alone scared me to silence, but she crackled the taser again for good measure. The second lady in the blue catsuit finally finished untying my legs and helped me up. I could see her when I looked down at my feet. The bag they put over me, wide open at the bottom. She put a warm, soft finger against my trembling lips and whispered into my ear through the bag. "Shh," she said in a softer, gentler voice. "Be a good boy and come with us." Somehow, all I could do was nod my head. The lady in the red catsuit pulled on my shirt's front, further ripping it as we went up a set of stairs. I heard a lock click and a door creak open. I must have taken around 20 steps until my leg collided into a steel chair. The lady in red walked me around it and pushed me down. I jumped at the shock of cold metal against me. Even through pants, it felt freezing. "I'm just gonna secure you to the chair, all right?" the softer voice of the two said. Who are you? I asked, trembling. Please, let me go. I highly doubted either of them would tell me who they were or let me leave, so I decided to think of them by color they were wearing. At that point, Red let out a menacing laugh. Let you go? She cackled. You're hilarious. To Blue, she said, He's a funny one, isn't he? I heard Blue chuckle and pull up a seat somewhere in front of me. Please, I begged. Why are you doing this? I don't know what I did. Red snapped. Don't know what you did? She screamed. Suddenly she was right up on me. I felt her breath against my face. It smelled like berries. You're one nasty piece of work, aren't you? How dare you? What? Did you suddenly forget how you've screwed us over in the massive deal? You spineless piece of scum. We will never forget. Confusion took over me. I understood none of what Red was saying. What deal? I asked into the room, hearing my own voice echo. It sounded like the entire place was made of steel. I honestly don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a kid. What deal are you talking about? I heard Blue push her seat back and walk over to me. I could see her boots between my legs, and she pushed up close to me and whispered, Just admit it, Dean. Tell us where you hid the package. Dean? I said almost inaudibly. Dean? I'm not Dean! What package? You got the wrong guy here! I said louder when I finally figured out what was happening. I let out a nervous laugh. Dude, you got the wrong guy here. I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know anyone called Dean. Just let me go, man. I promise I won't speak a word of this. I began to relax, but Red wasn't having any of it. She rushed to my side and took the bag off my head. The sudden brightness of the room blinded me, and I had to squint at their faces. If I wasn't scared for my life, I would have been hitting on both of them by then. Red had long flowing black hair that ended just above the small of her back. She had intense hazel eyes that bore into mine. Blue definitely had the look of a sweetheart to her. Her facial features were soft, and the severity of the blonde hair she wore in a high ponytail didn't take away from the innocence on her face. She was looking at me with wide blue eyes that had a look of confusion. He's not Dean? She asked Red. Red was not easily convinced. She looked me up and down as if trying to judge my innocence based on what I was wearing. Don't believe anything he says. He's trying to get out of the world of trouble he's in for, Red told Blue. She walked off and disappeared behind a series of industrial shelves at the far end of the room. Blue ran her hands down my blonde wig, which was miraculously still intact. Just tell us where the package is, Dean, she said sweetly, sitting on my lap and resting her arm on my shoulder. She curled her arm around my neck and cradled my head with her hand, stroking my wig as she spoke. We'll let you go. I promise. You'll only get my partner mad if you don't tell us soon. And I promise you, you don't want to see her mad. The way Blue touched me made me feel things. I tried to snap out of those thoughts, but her neck was so close to my neck, and her scent was intoxicating. That's her not being mad? I laughed nervously. You don't want to see me mad either, she said, slipping her warm, soft hand under my torn tunic and rubbing my shoulder. The way she was going, I was wondering if I should stick around and find out. What if I want to? I asked her. She instantly jumped off of me. I felt a sharp slap across my face before I saw it. Naughty boy, she said, caressing the place where her palm hit my cheek. What are you doing? Said a commanding voice from the end of the room. Red had returned, and thankfully, with her return, the tickling stopped. I struggled to catch my breath. I was just trying to get him to talk, said Blue. He can't talk when he's too busy dying from being unable to catch breath, can he? Said Red. How many times do I have to tell you? No playing with the target. Blue backed down and returned to her seat. Sorry, jeez, she muttered under her breath. Red produced a riding crop from behind her. She slapped it threateningly against her palm. Now talk, or you're getting some of this, she said. Things suddenly got serious. I swear, I'm not Dean, I pleaded. I promise, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know anything about a package or a deal or whatever. Please. The look on my face must have convinced them, because Red looked at Blue, and Blue shrugged her shoulders. Red hit my thighs with the riding crop. The sound of leather slapping against me echoed across the steel room, and I closed my eyes from the searing pain. For a second, it felt good. But the potential danger set my head straight again, and something in my head clicked. "The guy!" I yelled. "There was a guy! At the Chinese restaurant! He was dressed exactly like me! Exactly like me! You got the wrong guy! I told you, it's not me! You got the wrong guy!" Red looked at me with confusion on her face. She tugged at my wig and it came loose, revealing the brown curls that I had. Blue gasped and stood, her hands over her mouth. "Dean has red hair!" she exclaimed. "We've been following the wrong guy the whole day?" Red erupted. The last thing I remembered was the back of Red's hand coming towards me. I woke up outside of my house, dumped into one of those bushes. I still don't know what happened that day, but I'm just glad I got out of it. From that day on, I always made sure to change out of my costume after conventions.